Thank you, everyone, for singers and videographers. Thank you, Reverend Rowan, for leading us in this most important moment. So I want to thank all and welcome all. If you're with the press, we welcome you. For those who watch from afar or at a different time, welcome to our Moral Monday, the Poor People's Campaign press conference, which is held here in front of the office of Congressperson Zoe Lofgren, California District number 19, right here centered in San Jose. Now we are here to request that our Congressperson join in support of House Resolution 438, calling for a third Reconstruction, fully addressing poverty and low wages from the bottom up. East Bay Congresswoman Barbara Lee introduced this resolution to the Congress on May 25th. She did this in full partnership with our National Poor People's Campaign co-leaders, Dr. Reverend William Barber, Dr. Reverend Liz Theo Harris. Today we're holding this press conference here and at our state capitol in Sacramento, at other locations throughout California, and across the nation, including in Washington, D.C., where we are calling upon every congressperson, regardless of their political party, to sign on to this resolution. And we also call upon every person in this nation to rise up, to make policy changes which bring our economy into strength by starting with the poorest of the poor, all men, women, and children, and others, all struggling with poverty. When one suffers, all suffer. We have a moral obligation to change the narrative of poverty by changing the narrators. We created this platform so the people most impacted can have a voice. We are here to build power, to change policies that make people poor and keep 140 million Americans in or near poverty. Today, you will hear powerful testimonies from people who are directly impacted by the 5 interlocking injustices of poverty, systemic racism, ecological devastation, militarism and the war economy, and the 5th, the distorted moral narrative of religious nationalism. I'm the Reverend Mary Blessing. I'm an Episcopal priest of the Episcopal Diocese of El Camino Real. California Congressional District 19 sits within our diocesan boundaries. So it is only natural that I, as a member of the Bay Area Poor People's Campaign, would be here today along with other colleagues, lay and ordained, believers and non-believers, who share the view that we, all citizens, have a moral imperative to care for the most vulnerable, the poor and low-wealth members of our community. Yes, I'm a white person with privilege, but that does not prevent my family from suffering many of these aspects of the 5 interlocking injustices. Just as with many of you, members of my own family suffer from poverty, largely due to health disabilities, over which they have little or no control. They struggle to find suitable, affordable housing, and usually have to withstand the dangers of group living or substandard living, because in our region, our state, and our country do not provide adequate housing for the disabled. They are only one major medical disaster from bankruptcy. Family members can only help sustain them for so long. But when those family members are deceased, where will they be? Why a third reconstruction of our nation? Drawing on the transformational history of the first Reconstruction, which occurred at the Civil War in the 1860s, but whose leader was assassinated before it was fully realized. And then a second Reconstruction 100 years later, with the Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s. And before it was brought to full fruition, that leader was assassinated. So, today we call for a third Reconstruction, which will not be assassinated. Amen. Today we need a revival of our constitutional commitment to establish justice. As we were told by the prophet of old, Micah, we must act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. And as the greatest prophet of my own faith, Jesus, the one who points always to God as love, taught us and showed us, we who wish to have our own well-being satisfied, we must first feed the hungry, give water to the thirsty, welcome the stranger, especially immigrants, clothe the naked, care for the sick, and visit the prisoners. As a nation, we must demand our hard-earned tax money be used to provide for the general welfare of all people. We must end decades of austerity and punitive action against the poor. We must recognize and change policies to center on uplifting the 140 million poor and low-wealth citizens, because these are also good economic policies that can heal and transform our nation. We're building a third Reconstruction from the bottom up, from the states up, and we thank you for joining us today.